What's
Do
that?
you think that it's going to encourage people to get vaccinated when you're
Do you
screaming
think
at
that?
them and calling them brain dead? You're
Wait,
attacking me
can you answer
for
that question
playing
back for
into these
yourself? Do you think that
conspiracy
playing
theories.
defense? Do you think that playing defense for
No,
some
no,
of
no.
these
You've been
anti-vax
playing. No, no. Hold
narratives
on.
about the death
No,
rates being
no,
inflated?
no.
Do you think that's
You're
going to
not going to
encourage
get
people
to
to
do
get
that.
vaccinated?
Yeah, so I'm excited to get into the mandates thing. I mean, I know that you saw me debate Destiny on this. We were supposed to be talking about mandates, but
Hmm.
we ended up kind of getting into the weeds and talking about vaccine hesitancy a lot more than I'd like to. And then I don't know if you know this, but like 2 hours after I talked to Destiny, that's when Biden made his speech with the mandates. So it was like super coincidental timing.
Sure. I mean, I
Uh,
think we'll. I honestly have a feeling that as this conversation goes on, we're going to just probably hit on a lot of these topics.
Good.
Um,
Yeah.
because I assume you saw my video where I mentioned your debate with Destiny. I saw your comment on it. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think we're probably going to get into the hesitancy and the mandates. I guess if you don't mind, I can open up with my little spiel here.
Sure.
I've been thinking about like how to approach this, right? Because I think that you and I have some common ground in the sense
Mhm.
that we're both not like anti-vax. You
Right.
are, I know that you're not anti-vax yourself. Um,
Right.
and I think that we can reach some common ground in the sense that like, although I personally tend to take a more abrasive approach on my channel, that's kind of what I do. I also have said this repeatedly that there's completely a space for people to like try to reach out, empathize with those who are hesitant. That's
Mhm.
just not how
Yeah.
I'm not as good as that at that. That's just kind of how I feel
Mhm.
I best convince my audience. But whatever, I think we can agree there. The problem though that I really have is that although you say you're not anti-vax, and I know that you yourself are not, it seems that a lot of the times your rhetoric is getting on the line of being effectively anti-vax. And I say that because it seems like you play defense for a lot of
Mhm.
anti-vax narratives.
It's not that I play defense for their narrative, so I do try to be charitable. I do want to respect personal autonomy. I very, very heavily agree with that. As you know, like I'm not really a conservative. I mean, I might
Right.
be a little bit right-leaning center, even like somewhat libertarian, but I am like by definition politically homeless. Like I'm all over the fucking place. So,
Hmm.
but my audience is mainly conservative. And so, yeah, so I've spent a lot of time around, people who I can really start to relate to after a period of time, see that they're not brain dead idiots. Some of them have been spoon-fed misinformation, and I do a lot of work trying to debunk some of that kind of stuff. Like, I spend as much time debunking ridiculous COVID conspiracies, probably more time doing that than I do anything else. That said,
I just know
I
based on what I
understand.
saw. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I understand the skepticism. I understand people being hesitant to trust the government, and they should be. I understand that. I get flack from some people because, like for example, I was talking about Pfizer, I don't know if you know this, has the largest criminal fine ever imposed in history, right? And it was for kickbacks and crooked
But see, this
marketing.
is this is kind of what I
Yeah, yeah.
this is
So,
kind of what
so
I
I
mean,
know,
right? Is
but
that
listen, okay, but hold on, let me finish. I'm defending myself here, okay? There is no reason why I wouldn't bring these things up, okay? It's not fair to the general public to willfully ignore and lie and say, "Ooh, don't talk about that.
I'm
That'll
not saying
change
that's what you
people's
should do.
minds." Okay, I know. But you're saying like, that I shouldn't be talking about that because it promotes vaccine hesitancy, but like, no, no, we should
That's not
still
what I
be raising
said.
awareness of this
I
stuff.
I didn't
Okay.
actually say that. Like I agree that like we can talk about like past scandals that have happened with the FDA. We can talk about past scandals and reasons why there might be some hesitancy there. It's more that you're not just reaching out to people and then steering them in the right direction. Oftentimes it seems that you're empathizing with them, almost
I am.
validating the bullshit that they believe.
Well, there are some things that I believe to be true, or maybe not
Like for
necessarily
example
true
in the
because we don't know
Destiny
for
debate,
fact.
for example in like the Destiny debate, you brought up the inflated death rates. Like that is like a
And there is actually like so I actually did went back and did my research on that afterwards because again, like I admitted, I
Mhm.
was relying on, what came out at the time. And I do actually have an article from the AAMC, the American Medical Association. Hold on, that's not American
Is
Medical
this on them
Association.
undercounting the COVID rates?
So that's what when you really get into the nitty gritty, because like at the time when I was hearing about all of this, when we were all hearing about all of this, it was mainly talking about the let me just see here. There was a particular statement, and I have it right here. It's from Deborah Birx, MD, coordinator of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. She said that when asked about people who have COVID-19 but die from pre-existing conditions, she said, if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID death, which raised a bunch of questions about whether the death rate was with COVID or from COVID. And that
Hmm.
statement, it says, combined with some state health officials saying they follow the same policy, spark changes. And so the CDC like used that to be like, no, stop doing that. So the CDC acknowledged that that had happened and they took steps to mitigate it, but it was
Hmm.
definitely happening. Now, to
But
be
are you
fair,
sure that
later
wasn't just
on,
like listing COVID on the, because the way that they
it,
make the death certificate,
let me
it
send
could
this
have
to you.
just been that they were listing COVID on there as one of the causes of death,
Excuse me.
especially because COVID leads to a lot of other issues as well,
Right.
right?
And you're right, but that was also being counted as a COVID death, which was the problem, and that changed the way that they were reporting things. So
So
I could
that's a
send you the article
far
if you're
cry
interested.
that, okay, so just
Well,
to be
I'm
clear,
telling you
hold
that
on, wait,
I'm
wait, wait.
telling you
But if
I
that's,
fact checked myself.
okay, so then you're walking back when you
I'm
said,
finishing. No, I'm not
you're
walking
walking
back.
back when
I'm
you, well, no,
saying,
no, no, I'm not,
hold
I'm,
on.
I'm asking if you're
Yeah.
walking back this specific part of the quote where you said they were doing it because they wanted more federal aid. I don't
Well,
believe
that
that
is
that's true.
what
That
they
plays
were
directly into
claiming.
the
Okay.
conspiracy theory.
So that's not a conspiracy theory. There were mayors and stuff of towns claiming it. It's all in this article. It talks about the entire thing that happened. And there were mayors that were claiming that, although it appears that those ended up after investigation being unsubstantiated.
Okay.
This also notes, the article also notes that, see,
But
I
see,
know,
why don't I hear that part ever? Why don't I hear like it eventually became unsubstantiated? It sounds that like a lot, like I guess
well, you're
based on,
hearing it right now.
well, based on what I'm hearing when you are talking on your channel generally,
Mhm.
and when you were talking to Destiny, it was mainly just playing defense for the inflated death rates narrative, which I'm not
Okay,
saying
so
that there
first of
haven't ever
all,
been, hold on, I'm not saying that
uh,
there haven't ever been claims made that way. Okay, there
sure.
have been. However, we do know for the most part, the deaths have been counted correctly. There may
Okay.
have been
And
some
this is not a
there,
hill that I'm
there,
gonna die on
there may have
today.
been
So I
some
mean,
okay, there may have been some discrepancies here and there, absolutely. But
mhm.
the claim that they were conflating other deaths with COVID in order to get more federal aid, which was your initial claim. I have your direct quote here in my notes.
Mhm. I'm
That
not
is
here.
playing,
I'm not. I
but that,
just you're kind of beating at this point. I'm saying those things were said at the time. There were
but it was
absolutely
already known that they
claims of this
also were not,
happen.
but it was already known that they were also not substantiated when you made
I,
that claim
okay.
initially, right?
When I made
So
the
that's
claim
playing
initially, I
directly into
said that there,
conspiracy
no, no,
zone.
no, stop. I didn't say this is for a fact absolutely happened. I said there were claims that, and there were, so that
No,
was not
that's a lie.
incorrect.
You said the death rate, you said,
Okay, well,
quote,
I'm
the,
not, I
can I
haven't
read your quote?
memorized the debate with Destiny. I don't know why
I
you
didn't
have like
I didn't
a,
memorize it. I have one quote because my what I
okay.
really am trying to get at
Mhm.
here is that I don't think you're anti-vax. I don't, but I think that your rhetoric is effectively anti-vax. And what I'm trying
I was
to
still trying
show
to
that by the,
finish.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, in addition to them acknowledging that there are problems with how, like, even after the federal funding thing was found to be unsubstantiated, there were still claims, but the narrative is that it was unsubstantiated, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there were also more people saying they did acknowledge that there are huge issues in how all data is reported, including the number of cases, and in some cases they say that it may have been actually there's COVID deaths that are probably underreported,
Yeah.
which also makes sense to what Destiny is saying. And so kind of what I got from this is that the data there's problems with data collection. I've talked about this a lot on my stream. I don't know how often you're actually in my stream, but I talk about problems with data collection a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, the reason it's not a hill that I want to die on is because it really doesn't make that big of a difference. So I
The
mean,
reason
you know, if
it
it's
does, it
between a
makes a
1
difference to
and a
me
two
though, the
percent death
thing.
rate, it's not like a big enough. I'm not saying that there's actually been zero deaths from COVID. It's all a lie. There, it's all like
No,
if you were gonna say, hold on,
I don't think
if
that's
you
what
were
you are
saying,
saying.
no, okay, I know, but if you were to kind of claim that I was pandering to conspiracies, the conspiracy theory would actually be there's actually no such thing as COVID. All of that was the flu, which, believe it or not, I've heard many, many
I
times.
know there
Okay,
are other
that's the
conspiracy and
conspiracy.
what you do is you shit all over the like absolutely crazy conspiracies, but then you play defense for the more moderate conspiracy theories.
Because some of them hold water.
Hold on, let me read you your direct quote here and you can tell me
Okay.
what you think this
And then
sounds like.
after that, I'd like
The
to move on from like the Destiny thing because I'm debating you, not
it's not
Destiny.
about
And I'd really like to have a separate dialogue.
I'm not trying to debate you on Destiny. I'm trying to debate you on the effects of your rhetoric specifically.
Mhm.
Because what I said in my video originally was that I think that sometimes you're effectively anti-vax. So your quote
Mhm.
at 1518 was, quote, the death rates, for example, we know they were conflating other causes of death with COVID deaths. Like that's been confirmed. I live in Texas and
Mhm.
they admitted it.
They did.
They said they were doing it because they wanted more federal aid.
That did get said. Where's the lie?
You never explained that that wasn't true. This has already been
Okay,
debunked
listen,
repeatedly,
Hunter,
right?
okay, so you're being bad faith because
How?
at the beginning, but listen, let me explain. Here's why. Because as soon as you brought this up, I said I already read an article and I fact checked myself. And it seems like although the federal funding thing was unsubstantiated, there is widespread acknowledgement of deficiencies in COVID reporting. So I already fact checked myself, but you're trying to get me on a gotcha that I
That's
told you
all
this
right.
isn't
Well,
a
we
hill
can
I'm going to die
all
on.
right, we can
So
move on then. I'm not
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get you on any kind of a gotcha. I'm trying to explain from my perspective why I think that your rhetoric plays defense for anti-vax stuff.
Hmm.
But
Okay, I
I went
understand
into
what you're
your
saying.
actual streams if you want to talk a little bit
Hmm.
about that too. Like
Yeah.
because I took a really big issue with something you said on one of your streams the other day when you were talking about the past FDA scandals, which,
Hmm.
like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that those institutions have had
Right.
scandals. But at the 2 hour 18-minute mark, you said they do
It's,
you said so the
uh,
you said so the fact that they're really wait, hold on. You're talking about vaccine mandates here. You said they do
mhm.
absolutely have medical and religious and even sometimes philosophical exemptions for other vaccines. So the
Mhm.
fact they're really not doing that, they're going to say, oh, of course we're going to provide exemptions. They won't. Look at what they're doing in New York. They're going to make it so you have to get it
Mhm.
to sorry, I misspelled this. So you have to get it in order to live your normal life. And the
Mhm.
government has been transparent about this. They haven't tried to hide it. They told us they intended to take away all our liberties and give them back once we were vaccinated.
Not all are. Well, okay,
Do
yeah.
you think that that
Yeah,
sounds like a
where's the
little bit of like,
lie?
first of all, there are processes for exemptions in virtually
You
every
know, this
place,
isn't anything anti-vax. This is absolutely anti-mandate, and that is where I stand. That
but
is
it's
the
not.
hill I die on.
Okay, and that's fine. That's why I'm hoping we can get into the vaccine mandate from here, kind of. But
Mhm.
this isn't just, hey, I'm not against vaccine, I'm against vaccine mandates. This is
Right.
the government has been transparent. They've told us they're going to take away our liberties and only give them
Well, they
back
have.
once
I
we're
mean, well,
vaccinated.
there have been a lot of pundits who are saying stuff like, you know, we need to make it hard. We need to make it hard. We need to take things away from them and make it
That's
basically
not the
impossible
government
not to get
though.
the vaccine.
That's a huge
Well,
stretch
that's
from
the
the
white,
government.
okay, that plus the people who are White House correspondents, people in the Biden administration,
Mhm.
Biden himself has said that. What are you
No,
even
this is,
talking
and see, this
about?
is what I mean also is the whole thing with the exemption process. Do you
Hmm.
realize that as COVID vaccine mandates have risen, showing this up on my screen, as COVID
Hmm.
vaccine mandates have risen, religious exemptions have grown as well. There are processes
Yes.
in place for people to request exemptions. Now, whether or not they actually are
Right.
granted those
Okay.
exemptions is a different
Yeah, and they're actually making it harder. They're taking steps to make it harder for you to even claim religious exemptions now. Because what
well,
they're
that's
doing
because
is
it's
they're giving, I don't know if you've heard about this, but they've started to give people a questionnaire that asks them all kinds of questions to try to weed out whether or not they're lying. So they actually have a question that says, "What in what way do you religiously object?" And it's forcing them to fill it out and say, for example, I object to fetal cell lines being used in the products. And if that's the case, it
Hmm.
forces them to sign a like a waiver, or like what's the word? Like on good faith, that it's asking them to sign that they're not using any kind of medications that's ever been used in a fetal line, and it lists like examples of them because there's a lot of them. So it's
Hmm.
like makes them attest to the fact that they've never done that. So they're
So it
not just saying,
asks if
"Oh, okay, you have a
it's.
religious exemption." They're making it very difficult. For
That's
medical
not making it.
exemptions,
Hold on.
there are
I
almost
can
none.
can I respond to that because I
Uh,
understand totally like what you mean. Now I haven't heard of that completely. I would have to
mhm.
look that up myself. But that
Yeah.
sounds like a completely normal process. If you're already taking other medication that are using fetal cells, clearly the excuse that you don't want to take the vaccine would actually be a dumb reason not to get the vaccine on religious grounds. That wouldn't actually
I mean, I
suffice.
would, I
I think
would
that
just,
that's
I
completely
would
fair.
mainly object to the state trying to force a religious survey on people
Is
as
that
kind
this
of.
was the state doing that or was it a
It was a
company?
private company in this case, but
Okay, so it wasn't the
but
state. Let's make
in
sure to
the
keep that
scope
that
of the
separate though,
discussion,
because that's
in the
really big
scope, because
difference.
it was a state, and it was a company in New York City, and the scope of the discussion was included like, will this become a statewide thing for New York? And the other problem, and of course, like once these things become like public, that's when states start saying, that might be a good idea, and begin adopting them. It's dangerous. But at the same time, like, okay, so I'm kind of confused about where we're headed here. So,
We're headed here because
just
I kind of am
mhm.
wanting to substantiate a little bit more what I said in my video. And I said
Oh, you
when I
called
was
me
going really
stupid, like in every way except stupid.
when I
But go ahead.
when I was going off on anti-vaxxers and saying that it's brain
Uh-huh.
dead and there's no, because I still believe that other than having a
Mhm.
medical reason or like your doctor specifically telling you you shouldn't get the vaccine. I think you heard me say
Mhm.
this on Hippy Dippy. I don't think there's any substantial reason to get the vaccine at all. Zero. I think all of them are actually brain dead reasons, and I would that's a hill I'm willing to die on. Um, so when I see that you're like kind of coming on, the problem is that you're more effective in a way than like anti-vaxxers because anti-vaxxers are kind of nutty, but you're not nutty. You're reasonable and you come
Oh.
across
Mm.
reasonable, but then you
Yeah.
start to dispel.
Thank you for acknowledging the reason that people hate me is because it's really hard to counter my arguments because they're good.
I feel as if I'm countering your arguments just fine because I'm criticizing your
No,
overall.
you're trying to like tack me to the wall and break
I'm
down every single word I've
I'm
said
not.
without
I'm trying
actually getting into the arguments
No, I'm
themselves because
showing
you know
two.
that
I'm
they're hard to
pulling two.
counter.
That's not true. We can talk about the
Okay.
arguments that are super hard to counter next. But I'm showing you two now direct quotes that prove my argument, which is your rhetoric plays into anti vaccine narratives. And what you're doing is you're validating anti vaccine narratives there too. So you kind of you're kind of playing the like Tim Pool centrist card where you're like, I'm just
I am a
asking questions.
centrist. I know that
I'm
you
just
hate
being,
that, but
no, I'm a
I am
centrist
just
too.
asking questions, and I'm encouraging other people to also ask
But
questions
you're
and make
not. You're
decisions for
not just
themselves
answering
rather
it.
than blindly trusting the government.
That's
Because we
fine,
should
but you
not be
don't
doing that.
just do it.
So many
Seems that
people these days
usually
just go along and just what would rather be spoon fed because they're lazy. They'd rather not worry about it. They'd rather let the government tell them what to do, take liberties away, and then offer a little bit of those liberties back if they do what they say. And I don't
okay. So
like
you're
that.
standing by this quote. It sounds like.
Hmm.
So that's
Absolutely.
okay. So then that's fine. It just to me this sounds like conspiracy bait. The idea that the government's trying to
There's no
take all of our
conspiracy here.
the government's trying to take away all our liberties and only going to give them back once they're vaccinated. The
No, they
government's
already
not really
did
even
a lot
doing
of
that
that.
much other than
No.
Biden's vaccine mandate. Usually
Okay,
these
so
are private
let's talk
companies
about the
enacting
vaccine
this.
mandate. Can I tell you how I feel about the specific mandate that Biden put out?
Sure.
Okay, so I think it's pretty, hopefully it's accepted by pretty much everyone that this is potentially unconstitutional to order the private companies to enforce a vaccine or be fined. He's already being sued. I mean, we already know that this is a very problematic
It's a legal gray
overreach.
area.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. Yes, okay. So in the past, Psaki and Biden both said that they have no power to do this and that they wouldn't. They postured there wouldn't be any mandates and they completely 180'd on it.
Hmm.
All of this just kind of makes me suspicious that these mandates are more like rhetorical, I guess, and that they know it will spur businesses to move forward with enacting mandates of their own rather than the White House having to follow through with the mandates, which they already admitted are not in their authority to impose. I don't like this strategy. It seems
Hmm.
cowardly. It seems deceitful. It seems like another attempt to divide the country and make us fight and take our attention away from the current administration's shortcomings, of which there are many. I feel like it's possible that there's just no real substance behind the mandate because it's becoming clear that it's going to be an uphill legal challenge and it's probably not going to pan out. And if it does pan out, and I'd hate to see that, I am floored by how many people like you think that this is going to be good for the country.
Well, I
Because
would
right
be curious
now,
to know two things is
uh,
since with my understanding with this is because I think I talked about this on a hippie dippy. I don't remember if that was the one you were on or not. But yeah, I recognize right away that the mandates in and of itself is a legal gray area, the way that Biden's using OSHA. It does appear that there is some precedent there because OSHA has enacted other protections before also. And just for the audience, OSHA is a federal entity that regulates workplace safety and health. And it's argued by a lot of like legal professionals that they will have grounds to enact authority with the vaccination stuff there also, but I'm not denying the fact that this is absolutely a legal gray area and it's going to have to play out differently there. So my
right.
question to you would be, if this was found to be justified, let's say the court ruled in favor, all right, hypothetically, they said, yeah, OSHA can do this,
Mhm.
that's fine.
Mhm.
Would you be okay with it then?
No, it was never a matter of how can they weasel around and get it passed regardless of whether or not they already acknowledged it was an overreach. The issue is how can you honestly think that all these people who have actually taken a stand, they've dug their heels into the sand and they've said, hell no, I'm not going to comply with this. How can you actually believe that Biden can just wave his ultimatum wand and tell them do it or else? And they're just going to say, okay, well, sure. Well, all right
Do
then.
you have a
No,
problem
that's
with
not going to
Biden doing
happen.
stuff?
They're
So do you
going to
have a problem with
strike. They're going to protest. Police forces are resigning. Authoritarian show of force has never been the right approach. It wasn't the right approach when Biden was waving his finger and saying, get the vaccine or stay masked forever. The choice is yours. It wasn't the right approach when
I mean, that is a
public
fair
health
choice.
officials, like we talked about before, were advocating for making things difficult and withholding liberties until.
I would need a
Um,
source on that too, because
okay, well, I can send it to you.
you originally said it was the government, and then you eventually said it was actually just public
Yes, they have
pundits,
been
which are
talking
way
about
less
making it. Okay,
substantial.
Hunter, listen,
But
are they or are they not making things
I
difficult
don't know.
on the
Are they or are
unvaccinated?
anti-vaxxers making it more difficult for themselves
Okay, all
for
right,
being
let me put it
brainless
this
and
way.
refusing to
No,
take the
okay,
vaccine? Like,
first of
here's the
all,
thing.
like I'm
Can I
gonna
just
get
cut in really
I'm
quickly
gonna
here?
start taking a fucking shot every time you say brain dead because I'm
I
pretty
didn't
sure
say
it's your
brain dead there. I
favorite
said
word.
brainless. It is my favorite word with
Okay.
talking about anti-vaxxers because
Okay.
they are brain dead.
No,
But
because you're saying the same thing. It doesn't matter who said it before. Right now, the administration is making it very difficult, if not impossible, to remain unvaccinated and
that
remain in the
wasn't even
workforce.
okay. That wasn't even what I was talking about. With the people that you asked, do you really think these people are going to dig their heels in or whatever? Um, I think the
Hmm.
people who have already dug their heels in and are refusing to get the vaccine, I think that me and you can probably both agree that some of those people are actually insane. Like some of them who think it's like destroying the world or whatever. Like unfortunately, those
I
people
wouldn't call
might
them insane, but I
unfortunately
mean,
those people might lose their jobs. I mean, they do have a choice here and they
okay,
can
what about people who aren't like that? Because there's plenty of people who don't
it
think that
would
this
have
is a
to be
mass murder conspiracy
so
that
there are plenty of
legitimately are
people that
afraid and
don't
don't want to get it.
I know. And but just if they're afraid and don't want to get it, to me, that's a very dumb reason not to get the vaccine.
It doesn't matter. The
It
fact of the
does
matter
matter.
is, hold on, the fact of the matter is, this decision, if it's upheld in court, sets a dangerous precedent because it's a huge expansion of presidential and executive branch authority. And so people who love Biden are quick to be like, great, yeah, woo, let's do that. Yeah, expand the executive branch's power. But Biden's not going to be president forever. And once you give them that more authority, they hold that new power indefinitely. That's what we don't want.
I'm
We
just not
don't
sure
want the
what
federal
authority
government to
exactly.
expand and have this kind of control
So OSHA,
over
like, what is
private
their
companies.
OSHA wants to like hold control over like making sure they all get
OSHA
vaccinated?
is,
I don't understand
why does
what's like
it,
the where's the control
OSHA,
reach here?
OSHA is just the Biden administration's workaround so that they can get away with doing something that they know is illegal and not in their power to do. If they
No,
had
it's
the
not a
power to do it,
workaround.
they
It's the
wouldn't be
actual
using it.
potential.
He literally
It's the
admitted, Biden
I
admitted it was
know,
a
but that's why
workaround.
there were okay,
Okay.
so even if they're using OSHA, that's potentially taking a legal avenue there, right? So with the
It's a
mandates thing,
workaround.
it kind of comes down to one, yeah, it's a legal gray area. I think we can both find common ground there 100%.
Mhm.
But as far as like vaccine mandates generally, I know we talk about this on Hippy Dippy. There is precedent for the state to
I
mandate
was hoping you'd
vaccines.
say that.
Oh, so do
Right.
you disagree with
Yeah.
me on this?
I agree that there is a precedent, but can we talk about that precedent?
Sure.
So, Jacobson versus Massachusetts, which is what you're talking about right now, happened
It's one of
long
them.
enough ago to be written by a Civil War veteran. Okay. In this case, so this was
Mhm.
smallpox, by the way. Smallpox has a 30% death rate on its normal form and a 100% death rate on some other forms. Smallpox is a plague, right?
There were
So
way
Jacobson
more
argued,
recently too,
so
though.
Jacobson argued that that ruling was an infringement on the rights of the individual to care for their bodies in a way that seemed reasonable to them, right?
Hmm.
So in this time, the Supreme Court doesn't have a great track record. All right, they just passed the Dred Scott decision where they decided that black people didn't have human rights.
Okay.
And Jacobson was quoted in a 1920 something year 1920 something case that permitted the state to sterilize the feeble-minded, right? So this was a decision where they leaned heavily on Jacobson versus Mass to sterilize mentally handicapped people.
This
And actually,
isn't
I
the
have a quote.
only
Hold on. I have a quote that I want to find because no, because it's
this isn't
important.
the
Hold on.
only ruling though. There have been multiple others. I believe
I'm
there was one
not
in the
done.
80s also, right?
Okay, I'm not done. Okay, so here it is. It says, the principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. So yeah, this is Jacobson versus Mass. The progressive precedent upon which
I
all the
didn't say
other
it was
ones that you're okay,
progressive.
okay, no, okay. Oh, okay. Well, I shouldn't have assumed that. But all the other legal cases that you're referring to base themselves on Jacobson versus Match, which is pretty much an awful ruling that needs to be revisited at this time and under a new set of circumstances. This
So
is
what
not
about just this
smallpox.
month? What about just recently this year when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Indiana University with vaccine mandates?
Well, I'm not familiar with that. Can you
Yeah, but in fairness, I guess
expand?
that is a university, so that might not be a complete
Yeah. Uh,
one-to-one comparison.
So
But I can
this
send that to you
it
also.
does matter, right? That it does matter that we treat this differently, okay? Because this isn't a plague that has a 30 to 100% mortality rate,
Hmm.
right? This
Also,
isn't
it's not
responsible for decimating entire populations of people like smallpox is.
so okay, I'm not really sure how much relevance that has on whether or not the precedent is there. So it's not just, which just to be clear, the only precedent is not the 1905 case. There was also one in 1922. There was also one just this year with the Supreme Court in Indiana University. So
Yeah, yeah.
this has
All
been
based
ruled
off
over.
Jacobson versus Mass,
Even so,
which needs
this
to
has
be
been
revisited because it's a giant fucking human rights violation.
okay. This has the precedent there, but it's not just the precedent. It's also the fact that the states have the right, by using their police powers, to protect public safety. I believe they're able to use the 10th Amendment, and it might be the 14th Amendment also. I'd have to double check
So
that.
the 14th Amendment has actually been one of the things that people leaned on after the Jacobson versus Mash. So since all of those awful
Oh,
rulings,
yeah, no.
Supreme
This
Court
wasn't the
has
right amendment.
repeatedly made decisions that limited the power of the government to touch somebody's body under the 14th Amendment. So the 14th Amendment is the deprivation of, property, and also it expands to mean like your person, like, the government cannot come and take something from your body. They can't cut your fallopian tube so that you can't have dumb children. All
I
right, all of
agree
this
with
was
that.
an output of
Yes.
the civil rights movement. Okay. And I think that this needs to be revisited. I have
So can I
always
explain the
said that
problem
a
with what you're saying
precedent
here?
doesn't mean just because there's a precedent doesn't mean that it's right. And that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that people can't object to it. You can't just say there's a precedent and expect everyone to go, okay, well then, right? Do you agree
I
with that?
know it's not just that though. It's also that there's, I believe in the Constitution, the state literally has the right to do it by using their police powers. I believe that's what the 10th Amendment actually. Um, yeah. Second of all, what you're doing right now, the big problem is that this is called a fallacy of origin, and you're basically saying because the first court case was this way or that way or had this bad thing done or this guy was really bad, you're basically trying to argue that the whole thing is tainted. And
No,
that's not really a
no,
very
no,
fair
no. I'm
argument
not doing that.
because
I'm
you
saying that
are
I
doing
didn't
that,
agree
and the
with that. No,
precedent.
I'm saying I didn't agree with the precedent then, and I don't agree with it now.
But you were bringing up the fact that he was out of the civil rights, and you read the quote about the stuff
You
that he
can't use
said.
fallacy of origin when you're talking about a Supreme Court decision because that's absolutely very, very important to actually get to the root of where all of these laws and authorities came from.
I agree, but the way that you're bringing up like
Okay.
specific quotes from one of the judges is kind of
I
coming
mean,
off as
to
pretty
me,
disingenuous.
I mean, no, it's because here's why. It says the principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. That was a Supreme Court decision.
Okay, there were other Supreme Court decisions that didn't say that though, right?
Hmm.
So
Sure, later on, when,
in
things became more
1922,
progressive,
in
as we started to
1922,
realize
things didn't become that
as we
much more
started to
progressive in like
realize
15
what
years.
happened in 1922, I didn't
There
catch
was
that.
another, by 1922, in another case, Justice Brandeis, writing for a unanimous court, upheld childhood school mandates, calling it settled law.
Okay.
So that was
Okay.
another one too. So it wasn't
Mhm.
just the one with the guy that said the fallopian tube thing.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying here is that, these arguments about the vaccine and the mandates, it's not like is the vaccine safe, but about the actual mandates, the federal and it is important to note that Jacobson versus Mass is a state ruling, not a federal one, right? The federal government does not have the authority to do this. That's why they're
Well,
reaching
they
around
might.
through OSHA.
The OSHA thing
Okay.
might have the ability to.
Uh, this doesn't necessarily have to do with safety of vaccines. All of the entire anti-vax movement, it doesn't just have to do with safety of vaccines, although some people do lean on that, and that's their decision. Really, fundamentally, it has to do with the right of a person to make a decision about their own bodies. Okay, so I have
Hmm.
no my child is completely vaccinated for everything. Okay, I don't know if you know this, but I have my COVID vaccine. So I'm not anti-vax at all,
I know.
right? But I understand the danger of allowing the government to pressure and coerce people into injecting something into their body is completely different than, say, like the seatbelt. People always want to bring it back to seatbelts.
I
Like,
think
this is
seatbelts
not
are a
even
great
similar at
example.
all. You've also
Absolutely.
got,
They're both
okay,
preventative
well, you don't
measures.
have giant fucking multi-trillion-dollar companies making seatbelts and, like, making a
Yeah, you
ton of
do.
money off of their laws.
You have a bunch
Do
of
you?
companies that make cars and put
Cars,
seatbelts
but they're
in,
not. You know what I'm trying to say
and
is that we
but
don't have a
seatbelts are
big
preventative measures,
pharmaceutical.
right?
We don't have big seatbelt lobbying to fucking Congress and paying kickbacks to doctors and
What is that
paying.
supposed to imply?
It implies that pharmaceutical companies are like legitimately fucking evil. And
Okay,
they
so
don't
what's the
care
point
about
of you
you and they
bringing
don't
that
care
up?
about people who die. They care about making money. Let's talk about what
Sure.
happened today. Are you familiar with what happened today? It was a huge deal, the booster shots getting shot down.
I
So
haven't been
I actually
following the
saw,
booster shot thing too much. I
okay,
know that
so
the
you should
booster shot
be.
I know
Uh,
that the booster
okay,
shot plan was shot down, but I would
okay.
really like to stick more on the topics that we kind of came here to talk about, both the
Well,
mandates.
this is,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
No, this
I
isn't
promise
about
you
the
that this is
mandate or even
very,
vaccine
it is
hesitancy.
absolutely. This has to do with why we don't want to give the federal government that power. And you specifically asked me, I know you don't want to go down this path because I heard you talking to like a really nice viewer on your channel, right? Who was extremely hesitant about the vaccines. And he brought up the FDA members resigning and you kind of dismissed it. And we're
Hmm.
like, that's a conspiracy, but it's not a
No, no, no,
conspiracy.
no, no, no. I don't
So
know how
here,
much of that you
okay,
saw, but I actually originally I'd pulled up the wrong article, and then in that
okay,
conversation, I actually had to I
okay.
corrected myself.
Okay, so but let's talk about it because this is very, very important. I
Okay.
promise you it's important, right? So the reason it's important is because back in like I think August or July, I think August, Biden announced prematurely that the boosters would roll out starting like last week of September, like next week. And this
Hmm.
was before the FDA had approved any booster plan. So, in case you don't know or people don't know, the vaccines, you can't just give as many as you want. The FDA
Right.
approves the drug and the timing. So, when a booster is considered, the drug companies have to like resubmit all the data to the FDA to review it and approve it again, and like the timing and all of that. So, when Biden announced that, it made a few people in the FDA really angry because they're the doctors and scientists on the advisory panels in the process of reviewing the data. And the reason that they left was to make a statement that the White House was playing political optics role that they should not have been playing. They were trying to pressure and
Hmm.
coerce the FDA to release a drug that they had not deemed safe yet. And they were mad enough to actually resign over it. So, it actually it does make a big statement about the political pressure on the FDA to approve drugs, and the Biden administration basically coming out and giving them an overly restrictive timeline to do so. So, if they had not shot it down, which thank God they did, they may have
Hmm.
been rushed to approve a booster plan due to political pressure. And this is the kind of thing I was alluding to with Destiny when pressure from the drug companies, and in this case, the
Wait,
actual
but this
executive
this just
branch,
has
interfere
so
with scientists at the FDA who
okay.
are trying to do their jobs to protect public safety.
Okay, I understand all that, and that's bad. But that's talking about the booster plan. Even the thing you read said they announced the booster plan. That's
Do
probably
you
not.
not think
Well,
that there
hold
was
on. Can I
political
wait? Can
pressure to
hold on? I
approve the
just come on. I just let you.
vaccine?
No. I just let you talk for like 20 minutes.
Okay,
So,
but it's relevant.
well, it's not. It's
No.
really not because this is about the boosters right now. We can worry about the boosters a little bit later. They were announcing the plan too early, and that's what
Mhm.
caused the FDA people to be upset.
How are
And
you this
also, I don't.
dense to
Well, hold on.
not
Wait.
understand
I do
the
understand.
relevance?
I do understand, but I also recognize that this has happened with other administrations too. For example, with the Trump administration, Trump constantly not getting along with Dr. Fauci and not taking his advice. And also, just when I was trying to fact check you, I actually found something from when Trump was still president showing that the White House threatens the FDA chief's job over vaccine approval. So
Absolutely.
that's
I
probably not
what
great,
made
but like,
you think that I was pro Trump?
I don't think you're pro Trump. I'm just
Okay.
saying that I recognize that this is a flaw that can
Okay.
happen sometimes. But
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day,
And you don't think that's a legitimate reason for hesitancy to trust the FDA when
it
there's
might
so much political pressure?
it might be hesitancy to
Okay.
hold on. Wait. No, it might be hesitancy with the booster shot or the booster plan. But no, if this gives you hesitancy with the FDA, then my next question would be why is this internationally recognized as a good vaccine? Even more so because you did this with the Destiny conversation too. You kept on like alluding to this, like the FDA has had scandals. They're in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. Like,
They
no.
are, and
Which
they're in there in the EMA too.
even if that's true, it doesn't
Mhm.
speak to anything to do with this specific vaccine.
It
So
absolutely does, because
no,
I
it
think
doesn't.
that you
So
could
for hold
probably
on, wait.
agree
I
that
didn't even
this
get
is
to
the
hold on,
highest,
wait. I need to.
most politicized drug ever produced.
And you're playing into that more and more by playing cannon fodder for these anti-vax ideas.
By understanding that, like, for example, when I decided to get vaccinated, it was after FDA approval because I wanted to wait and make sure that they had had the time to make their decision, not just
Right.
the Biden administration struggling to maintain optics during a fucking failed administration.
Gotcha. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, for example, uh, did you know about when it was paused? In
Right,
August,
because
that
of
shows that the
blood
FDA is
clots.
yeah, that's and right, and that you know how many
Mhm.
it was, right? There were 6 cases out of the 8 million
You know,
people who
eh,
took the vaccine,
what's
and
the
the
point
FDA.
then?
I'm explaining that the FDA stepped in and put a pause to this to further examine data. That is the system doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So where's the coercion there with the pharmaceutical companies? Why did the
The
FDA
the FDA is doing a good job trying to push back, but I should also note that Pfizer is right there. Like this is what's so great about the boosters and with everything really. But this is a perfect example of how pharmaceutical drug approval works, right? So in this case, you had the White House clamoring for boosters, and you had Pfizer sitting right there with them clamoring for boosters. But what's weird about that, because obviously they have a financial incentive to put boosters out. Would you agree that they have an incentive at play to put boosters out and produce tons more vaccine and get
I
paid
mean,
for
they're a
it,
pharmaceutical
right?
company, so they have
Okay, so
incentives to create
so they
medicine,
have
which is
financial
probably
incentives.
pretty good.
So the most unsettling thing is normally when we have a drug company talking to the FDA, they're like, "Hey man, look at our drug. It's great. Look at this clinical trial data. Look at the efficacy. It's amazing." Yeah. Well, in
Hmm.
this case, we have Pfizer telling the FDA, "Man, this drug's not very good. It isn't performing well. We need
With the
boosters because the
boosters,
protection is waning." So the drug
they
company's
didn't say
argument
that.
is
This is
actually that the
another
drug
lie.
isn't
This is,
good.
oh
No, it's
God,
not. It
you do it all
absolutely
the
is. Do you
time.
want the
Yes, I don't even,
article?
no, I recognize that the efficacy wanes, but that's
Mhm.
just another, like, they didn't say, oh, we need boosters. It's not working out so
They
good.
did.
That's not,
And the
they may
FDA,
have
one
said
of
they
the
need
main
boosters, but
reasons
they
that the
weren't saying
FDA
it didn't work
decided
out.
not to approve the boosters is because they did not acknowledge that the efficacy had waned as badly as Pfizer was presenting it, and that the
There
data
have
that
been,
Pfizer was presenting had not
mhm.
been peer
There
reviewed.
have been, okay, cool. So there have been various studies done on the efficacy rates of the vaccine over time. And although it does wane a little bit over time, that still means nothing. That's not a reason
Okay.
not to get the vaccine.
No,
And I
I
don't
didn't
know why
say
you
it
want to,
was. I don't know why this is going
but
completely over your
because you,
head.
no, it's not going over my
I'm
head. It's
trying to
that I'm
say
trying to
that
keep you on
Pfizer is
topic and you keep trying to
arguing
move us over to
Pfizer
boosters. And
is
I don't care
because it's
about boosters.
important. Well, you don't care because you don't know how to counter it because
No, it's
I'm
not I don't
proving
know
a
how to
really
counter it.
good
It's that
point, and so
you
you're
said you
trying
want to
to
talk
pivot
about
away from this
vaccine
because you don't want to
mandates.
get nailed into a corner when I'm
Yep,
trying
you're right.
to
You're right.
show
I'm
you
getting,
that the
you're
drug
right.
companies and the FDA
I've been wrecked.
are
Please continue.
oftentimes
I'm getting
what
wrecked
I'm
right now.
trying to show you is, I mean, why else would you be trying to get me off this topic by saying, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. Is
Because it
that
doesn't.
really the way you debate? I don't care about that. Okay,
No,
well,
it's that
it's
when we come to
important.
debate vaccines generally and vaccine mandates, when you go to boosters and talk about people leaving because of the booster plan, I just say, okay, then maybe that casts some doubt and some hesitancy on the booster shots and the booster plan. This has
You realize
nothing.
that the boosters are
Hold
the
on.
same drug,
This
right?
has nothing to do with the current vaccines that are available. So,
It has everything to do with it. I
n-
don't
what
understand.
does it have to do with it? What
I'm
does it
I'm trying
matter?
to explain to you, right, that the White House and
Mm-hmm.
Pfizer are sitting in a fucking room going, Biden's sitting there going, how can I look better to the American public after I left all those fucking people in Afghanistan? Oh shit. Right. And then Pfizer's sitting here going, yes, Biden needs this and we're going to make a shit ton of money off of it.
Do you have a
Right.
source for
And the
this?
FDA is going, oh, fuck. Yeah, no, this doesn't, we're not ready yet. We're not going to approve this in time. Right. But regardless of the political pressure, Janet Woodcock, the head of the FDA, is putting pressure on the advisory panel by saying, oh, yeah, we're going to follow Biden's plan and get it out. But now she's got egg on her face. Biden's got egg on her face, on their faces, because the FDA, because of those two scientists who were willing to get to step down publicly and blow this shit up, they are the reasons. They're basically the whistleblowers here that are saying, no, fuck you. We're not going to let the White House come in here and bullying us into releasing something we don't think is safe for the public. How is that not relevant to the discussion that the government is politicizing this vaccine and trying to force the FDA to make decisions that could be counter to public health?
Well, I mean, it really, to me, just speaks volumes to the system. Thankfully, we see, a White House that is trying to put pressure to produce these boosters quickly. From what I've seen, the limited information I've seen, it seems that the booster shots have been shown to be relatively effective. I think it was over in Israel, especially. But it sounds like the system is
Uh,
working, and it sounds
well,
like. Hold on, wait. Am I able to
yeah,
actually like get a word in here? Because it sounds
yeah, sure, go
like
ahead.
this is the system doing exactly what it's supposed to. Pressure from the government because hey, they want the booster shots if they're necessary, and then the FDA saying, wait a minute, we need to make sure that these are safe. This sounds like the system working how it should be.
Like I said, the head of the FDA was putting pressure on the advisory panel members. Upper
Hmm.
leadership at the FDA was putting pressure, and it took two people threatening publicly to resign and go public with all of this information that finally led them to thankfully shed some light on what was happening and the pressure from the White House. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the government, this whole thing just underlines how political agendas and optics are at odds with public safety. And that should concern you when the
So what
government's
do you mean
trying to
by that?
mandate things and tell you what to do.
So
And we
what's
don't want to
threatening
listen
public
to
safety
the
with the
government
vaccines here?
there.
What's threatening public safety with
Well,
vaccines?
so the main issue that they're pinning on, they're waiting for more information, I think, on like the myocarditis pericarditis thing.
No, I've been reading
So
actually up about that. Do you know how long that lasts?
yeah, I know what you're gonna say because I heard you say this, and what you're saying is actually not true,
Really?
right?
Okay,
So
well, I'll
a
go ahead
lot
and
of
pull it
these
up really
people
quick because I have a
a lot
source
of
for the things
people
that I
are
say.
actually
So hold on.
okay. That's fine that you aren't concerned about it, but
It's
the
not that I'm not
FDA
concerned.
is, and they voted 16-3 in favor of not approving boosters because they were worried about myocarditis and
So
pericarditis. That
everybody's
was their
favorite.
primary concern.
Cool. So my
So that's
everyone's
cool that you're
favorite
not
wet.
concerned, but the FDA is concerned.
Okay,
But
so
I'm glad that you,
I
the expert, are not concerned. Thank you for
okay.
that.
First of all, aren't you the one that claims to be the expert here? And second of all, I didn't say I'm not concerned about it. It's just that generally, if you read it here from WebMD, I can also send you one from CDC, but I thought maybe you like it from here. Most people who got it quickly recovered after getting treatment and
Okay,
some
most
rest.
people.
Experts
Great.
are monitoring the side
Treatment.
effects, but need more research to know for sure what causes and long-term effects might be. Usually, it goes away
Okay.
within like 24 hours to
Okay,
like
it's
a
hilarious to
week.
me that you
Also,
just brush it off like it's
no,
not a serious
it's hilarious.
condition. It
What's
can lead
hilarious
to
to me is
death.
that you brush off the fact that getting COVID can cause all kinds of heart inflammatory issues.
Absolutely.
Getting
But
COVID can
okay,
cause
hold
lung
on.
issues, but
First of
instead
all,
you want to bolster this,
no,
cast the doubt, and
I
then you
want to
don't want
bolster
to.
it.
That's
Okay,
what you're
let me
doing
defend
right
myself.
now. Yes,
Oh, you're just no, you're just mad. Okay, listen. All I
I'm
said
seething.
was,
You're
and
right.
this is fact. I can send you the link to the CNN live feed. I was watching a live feed all day about this. The FDA's primary concern is myocarditis and pericarditis for the third shot of the booster, which is
Okay.
why they ultimately decided to roll out boosters for people 65 years and older who are not at risk for myocarditis pericarditis.
So
But I'm glad that you're
why does
telling
this
people
matter?
it's not a big deal. Oh,
This
you
was
oh, a
for the
little swelling
booster,
of the
right?
heart, no big deal. You'll just recover. It's fine.
This is for
But
the.
the FDA is very concerned about
I
it. That's
understand.
why they didn't approve it.
Okay, I know. Isn't it true that the great, I completely lost my train of thought now. With the myocarditis thing, I doesn't it just go away in a couple days? Isn't it like extremely rare?
It can,
Isn't it super rare?
or
And
you can
also
end
this
up in the
is
hospital,
and
or
also
a
what
lot
you
of people
just
are in hospitals because of it. People
a
do get
lot of people are in the
hospitalized for
hospital
it.
because of COVID too. But
Right.
a
And
lot of
and your own argument would be like, oh, overcrowding at hospitals, right? So maybe let's like investigate this age range of young men who are getting myocarditis, pericarditis,
but you
try to
told me
prevent
that
that
the
from
CDC
happening.
and the FDA wanted to wait on the boosters because of this. So this could
Because
be
yes,
so this could
yeah.
speak something to the current or to doubt on the boosters. That's fine. But as
Do you
far as
realize
the
the booster is the same drug
even
and
if
the
it is
same
the same drug,
concentration?
it could be in a bigger dose that causes these
No,
issues, right?
it's
So,
not. It's the same. It's the
okay.
same. It's just a third dose of the vaccine, a third dose. That's why people have
Okay,
already been
but
getting it.
isn't it what
Over millions of
wait,
people have already gotten a booster.
but you realize that it's like the second dose puts you at higher risk. So it does matter on how much dosage you take. So this is a problem, potentially, maybe a reason to have hesitancy with the booster, not with the two current FDA approved vaccines that are available now. So no, I completely reject this because if people are scared that they're going to be the one and only about 1,000 people have gotten it out of the what, like 20, 30, 40, 50 million people vaccinated in America? Come on.
Okay, I
If
don't know
people
how many.
if people are going to be super scared about this, but then not be scared of the all potential long-term effects of COVID, then yes, that would be a dumb and brain dead reason to not
Brain
get
dead
the
is the word
vaccine.
again.
Yep, you
Okay.
can take a shot every
Okay.
time I say it
So,
because
all right.
it's a silly reason not to get it. It's
It's a
logically
silly. A little
inconsistent.
heart swelling, guys. Hunter doesn't think it's a big deal, y'all.
No, that's not what I
Okay.
just
The
said.
FDA
You're
does, but
trying to
Hunter
paint me into
doesn't.
like a
So,
optically bad corner and
uh-huh.
it's not working because
Okay.
everyone just heard
Yeah,
what I
you haven't been
said.
doing that to me this entire time, so it's
I'm
cool.
I, I guess holding you to your own words, if you think that makes you look optically bad, maybe that should,
I
make you
am.
reconsider the things you
No,
say
not
in
at
your
all.
stream,
What
right?
I'm trying to say, all I did, Hunter, was bring up the reason why, because you said that the reason why was because they wanted, I forgot what you said, but I was just simply pointing out that the reason was actually because of myocarditis, pericarditis, and you were the one that went on a whole spiel about how it's not that bad, get over it. when the
Because it's
FDA is
not. The
saying, oh,
rarity,
okay,
it's not that bad.
if it wasn't that
Most
bad, the FDA wouldn't be concerned about it.
That's a
What?
lie. Most of these cases recovered. Most of them recovered in 24 hours to 48 hours, I believe.
Okay.
Even the CDC said that
Okay.
most cases were not severe. It doesn't need to
Hmm.
be severe
What
for the
they're
FDA.
okay.
Hold on. Can I
I'm
just
not
finish? Because
arguing with
I
you
want to
about
just.
this.
But you are. You've been
I
arguing with me about
simply
this.
acknowledge that the reason that you incorrectly stated the reason that they're waiting to release the booster. The biggest reason isn't efficacy, it's
I didn't say
myocarditis.
efficacy. You
Okay.
brought up the myocarditis thing, and I'm explaining that the one that obviously has something to do with how many doses. It sounds like maybe if you take 3 doses, you're at a higher risk, which would simply make sense.
I'm not here to just speculate wildly on things. So,
Okay, cool. Second of
uh,
all, yeah, most of these are extremely rare. It's extremely rare that this is even going to happen. Second of all, like I've said 100 million times now, it goes away on its own in almost every instance. This is something that's extremely mild. And again, this would cast doubt on the boosters, but not the 2 current available vaccines.
I'm
This would
not
be
saying
such
that
a
it does.
dumb reason not
You're
to get the
arguing.
vaccine.
I'm not arguing that this is a reason not to get the vaccine. I was never arguing that.
You
You're not
just
even
said this
listening to
might be why
me.
some people are skeptical or why they might have doubts. I thought that's what
The
you just
reason
said.
that they're skeptical is because of the FDA and the dynamics between the FDA, the White House, and Big Pharma. That was my entire reason for bringing up the boosters. And then what I said, you said something about why they had denied it, and I simply stated that the reason was because of myocarditis, pericarditis, and you thought that you had a gotcha, so you immediately latched onto it and was like, no, 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 it's not that big of a deal. When that's not what I was saying. I was simply stating that that's why they're not going to do the booster. And
Well,
furthermore,
I just wanted to make sure that I was
I
able to
would really
correct the
not agree
misinformation on
that
my
that's
channel.
not a big deal. Like, I mean, obviously they are worried about that, so that is something to consider,
Okay,
right?
I
Like,
recognize
if
that
I
it's
had a
something to.
son between the age of 12 and 17 or whatever the age range is, I would probably not get them vaccinated at this time because I don't want my kid to be in the hospital with a swollen heart.
Right, I
I mean,
understand.
it's,
You
you
instead
know,
just put them at risk of getting the Delta variant because that isn't like, come
like
on, this is so silly.
myocarditis,
Like, again, the
pericarditis is a
likelihood of
very
that
small
happening,
subset of likelihood of people. It's only
the
going to
likelihood
happen
of
in
getting
that age range.
the likelihood of
Very
even getting
small.
myocarditis is extremely small and
But the
insignificant.
FDA wants more data in order to
Sure.
release boosters. That's all I was saying. So
Okay.
I'm not making
Cool. That
any
sounds
further arguments towards that.
good. I
Like,
think that
I'm
if
not going
anything,
to
that just
tell
speaks
my
really good volumes to
middle-aged.
how good the FDA is. You know, they want to make sure that everything goes
Yeah,
through
they're doing a
properly.
good job.
They are. They're doing a great job. I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear you
but
admit that.
the advisory panels are doing a good job at standing their ground against their crooked management and and Janet Woodcock and actually the people who are actually like in bed with the White House because they surely are.
So, I mean,
Um,
even if the entire FDA was like completely corrupt, like it doesn't really mean anything considering the fact that we
really?
have like, well, I mean, it does mean something broadly, but as far as these
Yeah.
vaccines specifically, it doesn't really mean much considering the fact that we have like an international consensus, more or less, on the efficacy and safety of these vaccines. So, I don't know. I would just be like, obviously, if the FDA was completely corrupt, we'd want to talk about that. But I mean, because I know that you did that in the Destiny debate too, where you brought up like the FDA stuff. Kind of the FDA can't be trusted because of the pharmaceutical company
That
thing. They
that
sort of
was a that was disingenuous for Destiny to make it. No, what Destiny did, what I said was that the FDA does have a history of making politically based decisions at the expense of public health. And Destiny started going down his route of, oh, strong arming me of, so you don't believe the FDA is good, so you believe the FDA is completely corrupt, so you believe all drugs are bullshit. Which was he was just trying to strong
well,
arm
no, I
me
don't
when
think
all
that
I
you think
said.
that. It's just more, again, it's
Well,
like,
that's what happened on the Destiny debate. That's where he took that,
it's
and
kind of
that's
like you're
not
refusing to
accurate.
see the inference of what you're saying. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about your rhetoric here, is because even if you're not specifically saying, do not trust the vaccine, by constantly playing defense for it and bolstering narratives about like the FDA, I don't know, in the past they've been sketchy. After a while, the inference is that you are actually making that claim. So let me explain. This would be
I'm
like,
just trying to help people make educated
but you're
decisions.
not. You're giving them misinformation. So this would be
No,
like if
that
I,
what's wrong? What's been a lie?
with the
Please,
FDA,
what's
sure. So,
misinformation?
so you can talk all day about the FDA being corrupt potentially, and the FDA has certainly had some scandals. But you know
Okay, so
what?
where's the
But
lie?
hold on.
No, I
The
asked you where's
I'm
my misinformation?
Your misinformation is in the way you're delivering that
That's not
overall.
misinformation, false. No. That is not misinformation. You cannot infer misinformation. You
Okay,
either
fine.
speak
Let me. All
facts
right.
and allow people to make their own decision, or you say the COVID vaccine is going to make everybody, to make the frogs turn gay or
All right. I
whatever.
got you. You know what? You can add the. You can take one W here. Okay, that's okay. But seriously though, when you say like the FDA can't be trusted kind of thing, the inference of that is ultimately that like the FDA might be corrupt. I don't know. Like you're validating
No, the
vaccine
FDA, there
hesitancy.
is
So for
corruption
example,
in the
well, can
FDA.
I explain what I mean? So like
No, no, no. The vaccine
I'm
hesitancy
not
already
denying whether or
exists.
not there's corruption in the
If
FDA.
people are going to be
There has
hesitant about
been.
taking the vaccine, I want them to be hesitant for the right reasons and not for misinformation conspiracy theories. I want them to make their own minds up. I personally, my entire chat knows that I have been vaccinated. Okay. If I were really promoting vaccine hesitancy, would I not tell my entire chat? Would I tell my entire chat that I have been vaccinated if I really, really wanted them to not be?
I
Like,
mean,
you're
you
implying
also
that I
told your
want
chat
them
on
to be
the in your
unvaccinated.
I mean, in your stream from 9 days ago at the 2 hour 19 minute mark, you told your chat,
Fuck,
I
dude.
think I
That's
talked
what you've been
myself.
doing for a week?
You said, I think I talked myself out of getting the vaccine. I'm already feeling sick. So yeah, I mean, to me, that sounds like you might be validating
What?
vaccine hesitancy. You went over all
What
the
do you
corruption with the
mean?
FDA, and then you were like, oh, shit, I think I may have talked myself
Yeah.
out of
Okay.
getting the
So
vaccine.
now now you've clearly spent
And then
hours and
before that, you
hours and
posted the
hours of
only
looking at
30.
my VODs with
No, I
no
didn't. This
context.
this
With no
wasn't hours.
context.
You know what? Don't listen.
Okay.
No offense, BX Bullet. No offense. I did not have to
Eh,
spend a week. I did this for
okay.
like the morning time. Okay.
Okay.
And
Well, then
right
you
before
know
that, you
that
spread the.
like
You
pretty
said
much
only
everything
30.
I say is dry humor, jokes. I joke a lot. I'm very sarcastic. So you just quoting things out of context is not me saying, "Oh my God, I'm not." I already had
Okay,
the
that's
vaccine
fine.
appointment
I would really
scheduled.
like to get. Okay, that's fine. I would really like to just get back to my one point because we keep getting derailed here.
Okay.
It's just that
We get
the
derailed by you trying to assassinate my
I'm not
character.
trying to assassinate your character. I think that
Okay.
you're realizing in the scope of things the way that your rhetoric is effectively anti-vax. So when you talk constantly about these scandals involving the FDA, that's fine. But
Constantly. I literally talked about it one time, and it was just a random story that I had just read an article about, and I shared it with my stream.
so
I
what's
don't
the
constantly
inference of
talk
that? What's
about
the do you think that
conspiracies.
do you think
Please
someone
stop
who's
making it sound like that's all I do is spout conspiracies. This was one stream like a
okay, I'm
week and a
sorry.
half
One thing,
ago.
you did one stream on it and then talked to Destiny about it. So, from my limited understanding of your content, I've seen you talk about this a lot. So, for someone
That's
who is
because you're selectively watching only those things.
so for
So
someone
that
who
it's
is a
your
little
bias.
okay, got it. So for some people who are a little bit more on the vaccine hesitant side, what do
Mhm.
you think their inference is going to be after hearing you talk about how the FDA is in bed with the pharmaceutical companies? More or less, they're kind of manipulated to push these drugs. They've been bribed in the past. What do you think the inference of all that really is?
Well, the inference is that we need to make sure that we are providing, that we are clamoring for transparency, that we're clamoring for the FDA to be fair when they approve things and not lean into political pressure. We're trying to spread education on this, not so that it's like, hey, don't ever trust anything. I mean, if you were watching that stream, you know that I'm quick to say, listen, I'm actually not trying to murder the FDA. We need the FDA, and you take drugs every single day probably that are approved by the FDA. Also, drugs, makeup, all of this stuff is approved by the FDA. They're necessary and we need them, but it's important to acknowledge that sometimes things go awry. And if if we just refuse to acknowledge history, we're doomed to
I'm not
repeat
saying we need
that.
to
So
refuse
we
it at all.
need
I'm
to,
just
well,
asking
you
you what you
are. You're
think your
saying,
inference
how
are.
dare you bring up this thing
I
that
didn't say how
actually
dare
did.
you.
Okay, hold on.
I
Oh,
literally
I
said it's
know, but
fine with you saying it's
let
fine
me
for you to talk
talk.
about it.
Okay, no, you're not. You're saying that furthering an anti-vax narrative by talking about something that absolutely did happen that you would rather me not talk about because it doesn't
No.
specifically pander to your side of what you want.
That's literally not true. I already said
Okay,
you can talk about the FDA having scandals, and they have had scandals. But I was just
that's what
asking
I
you.
did. So
I
why are
was
you
just
so mad that
ask
I did that?
because I'm asking you what you think the inference from that kind
It
of
was
rhetoric is.
simply a story right? If you look at the name of that video, it's like the
It's
VOD,
not
it's like
just that video.
story
It's also
time.
the kind of
We
things you were
do
saying to
historical
Destiny about
stories.
how like they've been bribed, the pharmaceutical
Yeah,
companies. Like
because
you were
if we don't
inferring that
provide,
we
because
can't
we want
necessarily
them to
trust the
know
vaccine.
that we haven't forgotten. No, no, no. It's not that we can't trust the vaccine. It's that we want to make sure that the White House isn't imposing undue political pressure onto the FDA that could make them, force them or strong arm them into making a decision that's counter to public health. That's what I said. And I
Okay.
and I think that that's important that people are educated on this. I think it's important that people understand that these dynamics exist and that we need to be like aware of them. So that we need to clamor to the government to be more transparent and
Hmm.
don't let these things fall by the wayside because these have gotten people killed in the past and it's important. It has nothing to
Sure.
do with the vaccine. If you actually watch that whole video, it had nothing at all to do with the vaccine. It
I
had to
wasn't
do with
just
a
talking about
diabetes
that
drug called
video. I was.
Ritalin.
I know, but I wasn't all. I
Yeah, like
was.
this is my
But
specialty.
hold
Like
on. When
I
you brought up
understand a lot
Resolin,
about
for
the
example,
FDA.
I know, but you
So that's
bringing
what I
up
like to talk about.
okay, but when you brought up Resolin, for example, on the Destiny stream, you were bringing it up in the context of, well, you were literally on the conversation about vaccines, and you
Mhm.
brought it up in context of talking about how the FDA has taken bribes in the past, and there's been a lot of corruption. Like, the inference of that is ultimately that the FDA cannot be trusted. And you say that you don't believe that. That's fine. I believe you. That's good. But I think that all I really want is for you to be aware of sometimes the way that rhetoric, the inference there, that validates anti-vax narratives 100%. It's kind of like if I,
Okay. So
it's kind of,
let's
hold
just
on.
bury
No,
our
no, no, no,
heads in
because
the
no,
sand and
stop, no,
pretend like
because I've let,
everything's fine.
no, that's not what I said. It's the
Yeah, it is. That's the
you haven't let me
opposite.
tell. You realize you're
If I'm
barely letting
not,
me talk right
okay.
now. So it's the overall effect of your rhetoric. So try to imagine it this way, okay? If I came up here and I was like, now listen, all right, I don't think BX Bullet is dumb, okay? I don't. But there are a lot of people who do, and they have a lot of decent reasons for thinking that.
What? Why
Now
are you even saying
hold
that?
on. No, I don't think that. I don't. No, not me.
Oh,
But
okay.
there are a lot of other people think that. Like, do you see how after a while it starts to just sound like I'm basically more or less just calling you dumb, which I don't
Yeah,
think you're
I've
dumb, by the
already
way.
felt like you already have been calling me dumb.
But
That's
this
why
is
I
how you're
initially
doing it with your
commented on your
rhetoric.
first YouTube video where you literally called me dumb like 5 different times. So yes, you actually have.
I know, but I was saying more broadly on how
You
your
know,
rhetoric, the way
okay.
that
All
when
right,
you
all
talk,
right.
when you say
Thanks for
like,
admitting it.
the inflated death rates, when you bring up the FDA in the past can't be trusted, when you talk about how the government has admitted they want to take all of our rights away
All
and they're
right,
not
so let
going
me
to give
ask
them
you
back
this.
till we get vaccinated. Do
Okay,
you see how
have
the
you ever,
overall like
okay,
rhetoric can kind of have a
let me
different
ask you
inference
this.
there?
So, have you watched any of my previous content up to, before all of this kind of stuff, before the vaccine? Have you watched any of my previous content?
About like your gun stuff? Not really, no.
No, okay. I have been doing conspiracy streams. I have been doing this kind of talk about transparency in the government. We have been telling do these streams where we tell stories about times where the government conspiracies have turned out to be true. This is just literally something that I do on my stream. I'm sorry you don't like my content,
It's
but you
not just
trying to
about that. It's
police
also
my speech is not going to stop
I'm
me
not
from
trying to
doing my
police your
content.
speech. It's just and
Okay.
it's also
So
not
can we
just about
move
what you say.
on? Because you're just attacking me. Like we're not
I'm
even getting into any of the nitty-gritty about vaccine mandates or anything. You're
well
literally
because I
just
th-
trying to
I don't
you're
even think
trying
I
to have
asked you
like
to talk
a
about vaccine mandates. I think I said I just want to talk about general vaccine and vaccine hesitancy. And part of that also was I figured I might
bullshit.
as well. Isn't that what we said in the DMs?
No.
Did we say vaccine mandates in DMs? I can check.
Okay, I said I wanted it to be a polite. You did say vaccine hesitancy.
Okay, yes.
Um I said I agree, just in case, as long as you don't clickbait me or disrespect me, and it's just a
Uh-huh.
calm, respectful debate, and you
We have been
agreed.
getting a little heated here. Yeah, true.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But we're
Yeah,
on the
because I knew that
topic.
you were,
But
because once I saw your stream, I knew that you were going to do this. I knew you were going to try to just attack my strategy and my without actually talking
it's that
about
it
hesitancy. and
Well, that's not
or
true. We can talk
mandates.
about hesitancy, and we've been trying to. I've been saying that I think that,
Hmm.
there's dumb reasons not to get it. But I also, my broader point that I really am trying to hammer home is just the negative effects and the inferences a lot of your rhetoric has. But
Well,
it's
let's
fine.
talk
If
about
you don't
your
want to
rhetoric
acknowledge
and
that,
your
it's fine. We can
inferences.
move on to the next topic if you want. We
Yeah,
don't have
let's
to
talk
acknowledge that.
about your inferences, okay? So, in your opinion,
Hmm.
we should force people to get vaccines, right? But you're pro government mandates. Like, I believe you
Um,
even said, even if it's dictatorial, I'm still in favor of it. You actually said that you were still kind of liking the idea, even if you acknowledged that it was very dictatorial, right?
I don't think I said it was
Yeah.
dictatorial. I think I dispelled the myth that
You
the people were
said,
saying it
even
was
if it
dictatorial.
is, I kind of like it.
Okay, well
Okay.
maybe now you got me in a
All
bit of
right.
a
Okay.
hyperbole there, but I
Okay.
dispelled the myth
So,
that well, hold on. I
okay, no, go
dispelled
ahead.
that it was a dictatorial move, considering the fact that it's being like challenged in court and it's going through the legal proceedings that by definition does not really make it dictatorial. So
Okay.
I dispelled that first of all, and second of all, I think I've said that the federal government doesn't have the right to just like blanket mandate vaccines for all American citizens. But again, when it comes to the private sector and OSHA, like we already said, it's kind of a legal gray area there. So yeah, I think I'm pretty consistent on that thing.
Okay, so you are pro mandates in general. You're pro mandates. And why Like why? Okay, so let me ask you this. So you're vaccinated, right?
Hmm.
And you acknowledge that like I think up to like 70% of Americans have had at least one dose, right? So that would exclude people like we would say like about 30% of people are still vaccine hesitant, right?
It's not just about vaccine hesitancy, it's more about actual vaccine rates. So like in order to achieve herd immunity, we need to have anywhere between like 70 to 90% vaccinated.
Okay,
And
that's bullshit. And I'm gonna tell you, I've learned a lot about herd immunity just over this last week.
me
And I
too.
can send you sources on this. But no, the COVID-19 virus is here to stay. So most experts now are saying that herd immunity is no longer realistic with the vaccines we have now. Because they're acknowledging that the vaccines aren't effective enough, even if we had 100% of people, that this virus is on its way to becoming endemic, which means that the prevalence will die down and we're going to see it pop up seasonally for the rest of our lives, just like the flu. It's not going away ever.
Okay, well, I mean,
So,
based on what that's fine. Based on what I'm reading here, it says this is from Houston Methodist Medicine. How many people need to get vaccinated? Herd
how
immunity
long
looks
ago?
different. This was in August 4th, 2021.
Okay.
Um, It's still unclear exactly how many people will need to be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity to COVID-19, but experts estimate that it will take at least 70% of the population, with some estimates ranging as high as 90%.
Right, that's what
So,
that though more and more experts are now acknowledging that we're probably never going to really, we may never see herd immunity. So it's not something that's guaranteed to happen.
so that's
Now,
even more of a
now
reason to get
herd immunity
vaccinated. Damn.
happen like so in like an endemic or whether it becomes endemic or we gain herd immunity, they're kind of, I mean, it's going to be endemic. It's going to still be here. It's not going away, right? And
Hmm.
but what's going to happen is most people are going to end up having immunity either by vaccination or from natural immunity. So when you give these numbers of like, well, only 50% of people are fully vaccinated, you're specifically excluding people who do have natural immunity.
But we
And
don't
I'm
really
so
know that,
confused
do
at
we?
why you got, yeah, we
How
do
do we
know that
know they
natural
have?
immunity works
Oh no, I know we know that natural immunity works, but my main issue with
better than the
natural,
vaccines.
well, sure, but one, not everybody can afford to just get COVID in order to develop natural immunity.
But so many
And
people have
two,
already had it, is the point. I'm not asking people to go get COVID. That's
well, that's
silly.
again, this is what I mean, is it seems like you're not willing
A
to
lot of
look
the
at the
people who have
inference of what
not
you're
been
saying.
vaccinated are not doing so because they've already had COVID and they know that they have natural immunity. Why would those people get vaccinations
Sure,
if they know that their natural immunity is stronger?
so I can understand how that can come across a little bit like intuitively incorrect for sure. And it is possible, you're right. There are some studies showing that natural immunity is really good. The main problem with natural immunity is um, it eventually loses efficacy completely, 100%. Where like
Just like vaccines.
no vaccines, they wane, but even the
So does
lowest.
they both wane. We
But
don't know the extent to either.
well, we know that generally speaking, it seems. I know that you brought up the Israel study that showed only 32% effective against the Delta variant, which was
Hmm.
one study out of a group of multiple studies that found much higher rates. But
Hmm.
I think that yeah, there's just when it comes to the mandates at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't really seem to have too much of a
So
problem. But
you,
sorry,
so
I
are
got kind of
you in
confused. I'm looking at
favor?
my
It's okay.
notes here at the same time.
Are you in favor of mandating the vaccine for people who already have natural immunity, or would you exclude them from the mandates if they were able to provide a positive antibody test?
I mean, yeah, I think if they were able to prove an antibody test, then I think that would be reasonable. But
So
I'm
do
not
you
sure.
agree that that would significantly increase the percentage of Americans who are immune in some way, be it by vaccine or by natural immunity?
So they're gonna go and get like antibody tests, and then after that, if it says they don't have the antibodies, then they're gonna go. Would they go get vaccinated then?
I mean, I'm still against the vaccine mandates, to be clear.
What
I'm
about a
just I'm just
mandatory
ask I'm just trying
test
to
in
figure out where
general?
you
What about a
stand.
mandatory antibody test?
Why would you do that if you know you haven't gotten COVID? What would be the point? I mean, you wouldn't be able to do that because you're not able to test 300 million
I know,
Americans.
I know.
Like,
If I think that if you're able to prove that they have antibodies and they have natural immunity, then that's fine.
okay,
But yeah,
okay.
it's just
So we've just debunked the herd immunity theory.
well, no, I didn't. I don't.
Okay.
We did not debunk it. You said your piece. I said mine, and I've just read here about the 70 to 90%. And you know what? Even if there is no herd immunity at the end of the day, that's just more of a reason to get vaccinated. I mean, of course, obviously, that's more of a reason to get vaccinated and protect yourself against the
Yeah.
virus.
So, all right. So, okay. So so then I guess my question to you is why do you care so much what this small percentage, maybe as little as like 15% of people who are hesitant for like reasons other than natural immunity or
The people that are hesitant for the kind of like
or religious
silly,
reasons, right?
unsubstantial, like
Yeah. So
feelings-based
the
reasons.
brain dead idiots, as you call them,
Right.
why do you
Okay.
care if they get vaccinated if we already have such a substantial portion, if there's such a small percentage overall?
Well, it's not just a small percentage. It's usually it depends how you would measure that, I think. And even if it is a small percentage, what have we heard that the smallest radicals have the loudest voices? So I'm concerned
Good.
about so I'm concerned one just about generally speaking the misinformation that anti-vaxxers spread. But when it comes to actually getting the vaccine, there's a couple different reasons. One, if I'm not mistaken, by people not getting vaccinated, that's just putting them at higher risk of like the virus mutating and the virus mutating within them more or less.
Yeah, so that's a
Second of
myth.
Okay, so second of all, I have a problem with the fact that the hospitalization rate, just look at it. Like the people that are unvaccinated are dying, are
Hmm.
like at record rates. And then if you look
Maybe
at
you
the
should maybe we should quit trying to force vaccine mandates then on healthcare workers and you know because they're
also, if I'm not
leaving. We
mistaken, I
need
think
them
that
more, don't we?
also just to respond to your herd immunity thing too, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've proven that children surrounded by more vaccinated adults are at lower risk of getting COVID.
You know what? Children are basically so at such little risk. You know how many kids have died from COVID in the entire United States since the pandemic began?
I'm not really worried about that. I was just speaking to
118
Okay, yeah, I mean
out of
that's
60 million kids.
yeah, that's not that many,
So I'm
thankfully.
not worried about my kid. My kid has had some nasty shit. All right, she's given me some nasty shit.
Well, I'm
She's
pretty
gonna be
sure that the
fine.
Delta variant's affecting kids at higher rates, right?
There's still only been like barely over 100 deaths in America.
Okay, so it's really funny that when I demeaned the myocarditis thing for being like a really slim thing, you're like,
I'm talking about
"Oh,
small
Hunter's
kids.
down."
I'm calling kids under 12.
Okay,
Myocarditis is
got it.
kids at
It's
12
just
to 17.
babies getting COVID. It's only like 100, dude. Whatever, man. Who fucking cares? Really? Do you see how that's
Okay.
contradictory to how you
Well,
totally just you were demeaning what I said about the myocarditis thing, saying Hunter doesn't
no.
think it's a big deal. Well, okay, I guess BX Bullet doesn't think sick dying children is a
Well,
big deal.
that's a straw man, Aunt, first of all. No, that's not at all what I said. What I was saying is that the prevalence of kids getting it is very low. And I never said that the myocarditis, pericarditis wasn't rare. All I did was say that the FDA had raised that as a concern on the
I
boosters, and
know,
you
and you
tried
were
to nail me
shitting
to the
on me.
cross over that
And you were
fast,
shitting on
right?
me for saying that we're kind of like brushing it away, saying it's not really that big of a deal. But now you're brushing away like hundreds of kids dying from COVID. So I just thought that was a little bit of a funny
No, I
contradiction. I
didn't
don't know.
brush that off, right? You were trying to say that, let's protect the kids. Let's protect the kids, right?
Not
But the
even.
kids are
No, I
like
was
the least likely to
no,
even
when I
show
brought up the
symptoms.
okay, I brought up the kids to try and diffuse your herd immunity thing, that there were studies showing that when more people are vaccinated, it does seem to work as some form of herd immunity when protecting children. That was the
Okay,
reason
what
of me
was the
bringing it
first
up.
thing you said before that? Because I wanted to touch back on that, and I don't remember what it was.
Um, I don't know. I was gonna wrap up the conversation though. I mean, yeah.
All right, so let me just real quick before we wrap this up, and I agree this is getting kind of stale, but so you know we still haven't heard a good reason for you why these people should be forced to take a vaccine and what benefit that's going to provide since we know or since I've argued
It lowers
that
the
herd
risk of
immunity.
breakthrough. It lowers the risk of breakthrough viruses for people who are vaccinated.
Okay,
It
so you're going to
protect
get a little sick,
it.
right? So then would you be willing to
A lot of
mandate flu
downplaying here.
vaccines?
Weird. I don't know why I was so
Because
shot.
you're
I was so shit on for down.
99%.
And you have
Because
a,
something
you know
like
what? You have less
99%
than,
of people don't get seriously ill if
and
they're
you have less than,
vaccinated.
and you have less than a 0.1% chance of dying from the vaccine. So yeah, like people should just stop being so brain dead, right? Like, come on.
Okay, no,
We can.
listen, I'm just
This
asking you
is.
because it
I
has
think that
nothing
you're
to do
being
with
hypocritical.
percentages
I
when
think
it
that
comes down to forcing people to do something they don't want to do. If you're going to take their rights away, you have to give a better excuse than I don't want to get sick.
I don't think
See,
that
here's
it's
the
a right
problem
thing.
with the collectivism
What do you mean I
approach.
don't want to get sick? That's their argument for not wanting to get the vaccine in the first place.
So respect it, right?
So
So
respect
here's the
my
thing.
wishes.
No,
People have a
here's
right not to get sick.
you have a right not to go out anywhere or be around anybody who's vaccinated or
And some people have a right
unvaccinated
not to
too.
well, I guess
Okay.
some people have a right not to drive, you know, that if they get hit by a drunk driver, fuck them.
Okay, my point is, and that you're proving it very well, is that like a lot of these arguments that you guys make of like, oh, protect the people who are vaccinated, protect us from breakthrough infections, protect people. This is good for the entire, you don't have the right to do things that will harm the rest of society. Collectivism, right?
But you haven't
The
proven how
good
the
of the
vaccines
community
harm
is more
society.
important than the individual. I'm not saying the vaccines harm society. I'm saying that forcing vaccines on people who don't want them harm society. And I do believe that. But the reason you're having such a hard time answering these questions is because you legitimately do not give a shit about the collective. You want your hot boy summer back. You
That's
want your life to return to
no,
normal.
it's actually I do greatly care about the collective.
And
That's why
your
I'm trying to
vaccine
shit on the
mandates are
fact that
completely
your rhetoric
self-driven.
is laced with defenses of
No.
anti-vaccine narratives at the end of the
And
day.
your
But
rhetoric is laced around, I want to get back to normal, guys. I'm tired of this. I
that's
want
not
it to
true.
be over.
My that's not true. My rhetoric is laced with people that don't want to get vaccinated tend to be brain dead because I have yet to hear a single
That's
good
a great
reason not to.
argument. Yeah.
Well, you
Hey
tried.
guys, you guys are
Hold on.
stupid. You're
Wait.
brain dead fucking morons. I hope you
What's your
die from
argument
COVID,
then?
you stupid fucks.
This whole argument has been
Is that
you.
going to get people vaccinated?
What's
Do
that?
you think that it's going to encourage people to get vaccinated when you're
Do you
screaming
think
at
that?
them and calling them brain dead? You're
Wait,
attacking me
can you answer
for
that question
playing
back
into
for
these
yourself? Do you think that
conspiracy
playing
theories.
defense? Do you think that playing defense for
No,
some
no,
of these
no. You've been
anti-vax
playing. No, no. Hold
narratives
on.
about the death
No,
rates being
no,
inflated?
no.
Do you think that's
You're
going to
not going to
encourage
get
people
to
to
do
get
that.
vaccinated?
You've been saying this the whole time. Now I'm saying it back to you. Why do you think that you're any better for shouting at them and calling them brain dead? Do you really think
Sure.
that that's
I
going to
have
get more people vaccinated, Hunter? Or do you think that it's going to cause more resentment,
It's
more
probably not going to
divide,
get people
make people
vaccinated because
more
these
pissed
people are
off?
largely brain dead, right? So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
usually
So
for
you're
me,
not
it's
helping either. So
well,
I don't
no,
want to hear you
you realize you're
virtue
not letting
signal
me
and get
talk
up
for
on your
longer than
fucking
like
moral
3 seconds.
high
So
ground
I'm just,
because you've been
I
slamming
understand.
me this whole
Well, I
time.
understand you're mad
I'm
right
not
now, but
letting
like
you
you can
take
at
a
least
moral
let me
high
like.
ground over me when you're not doing anything to improve the situation.
First of all, I am, and I'll explain gladly. So what I do here on this channel, okay, I tend to take the more abrasive perspective because it turns out that making some of these ideas, like anti-vaccine narratives, look crazy and clowning on them has a greater positive effect in convincing a general
And
audience
being
that
nice, really.
yes, because
You have no idea
especially
what I no, you watched
in your
literally one
version, which is
stream.
apparently being well, all right, I guess
And
I'll have to
base
go
my
watch
and
more.
then just
Maybe
took
that's why
like
we need to.
literally everything that you know about me and based it on that one stream or one little thing that you took. I literally I asked my chat.
It
I
wasn't
am
one
charitable.
stream.
I listen to them talk. I address their concerns. I explained to them why I decided to get vaccinated. I explained to them why it's important to consider getting vaccinated. We occasionally talk about conspiracies. We talk about MK Ultra. We talk about Operation Mockingbird. We talk about, Resilience controversy in the FDA. I don't see how any of those things is supposed to villainize me and make it look like I'm anti-vax or pushing an anti-vax rhetoric. That's my content. Sorry if you don't like my content. I'm sorry that you want to silence me. You're like, shh,
I'm not asking to silence you.
Stop talking about all those things that definitely did happen.
I never said not to talk about these things. You've been accusing me of straw manning, and you've been the only one straw manning here this entire time. It's just, I would please, I'm begging you to, like, let's just stop with the misinformation around COVID.
What misinformation? Stop.
Okay,
you already
the
admitted
fact that they are
I was not
conflating
giving
death
misinformation.
rates. Yes,
you already admitted that that was not misinformation.
The conflated death thing was a blatant misinformation.
No, it was not blatant misinformation. It was not debunked.
And then the more general rhetoric was the FDA cannot be trusted and the vaccines lose efficacy narrative, which are both really silly reasons not to get the vaccine. So yeah, that's why I was saying ultimately your rhetoric was anti-vax, but
that's not misinformation.
You
already
pointed out to
admitted
your
that
specific,
I wasn't giving misinformation.
You weren't giving misinformation with the one FDA take, but you were on the overcounting of hospitals. I've admitted that, and I feel as though I've been pretty...
I still don't agree with that.
Okay, that's
because
fine.
There
really
has been wide acknowledgement that there were.
All right, I know
actually
that
being
it's been
conflated.
a heated conversation.
I mean, it's right here. I read it to you. Would you like me to send you the article?
No, because I think that right now this has been a pretty clear demonstration of what happens when someone calls you out on the effects of your rhetoric.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
I think that I probably took the upper hand on this entire debate, honestly, while you tried to attack me, and it was basically just me defending myself. But okay, say what you want. We'll let
defending yourself from your own words, I guess that's got to be tough. But all right, either way, I appreciate you coming on here, and yeah, I guess have a good rest of your day.
All right. See you, Hunter.
I bet her chat's like, Hunter's so mean, blah, 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 blah. Her conservative audience seething, I guarantee you.
Make it look like I lost, but we all fucking know that I won. Not easy.
That's the cope talking right there, but okay.
It was just him trying to attack me. It was just him virtue signaling and trying to take a moral high ground over me. Like, he didn't even come with any good arguments that anybody could fucking respect.
What? I was barely able to give any because you wouldn't stop interrupting me.
Like, I don't pander to I mean, we do conspiracy
talk on my stream all the time. He's unbelievably condescending. Like, listen to the chat. They're so mad. Remember, when you're a condescending prick to the libtards, you're the coolest alpha Chad best ever. But if you're even have a little bit of a mean tone with conservatives, suddenly, all of a sudden, it's, oh, so condescending. Why can't we treat other people like human?
No. It might scare them. Good. Well, Dolov, I do think that was good, but I don't think it was productive. I think it was good for me, but I don't think it was productive because the entire time was just Hunter trying to nail me to the wall and fucking attack me. I tried not to do that to him. I tried really hard to like stick to my ground.
I'm Hunter, truth is bad. Who said that?
I mean, he tried to strong arm me the entire time. Hey, thank you, A-List. I appreciate you guys.
When she says strong arm,
definitely subscribe. It's September. Guys, I hope you enjoy my content. We aren't done yet. That's right. Let's get some hype in the stream right now. I gotta use the restroom and order some food. I'm fucking starving.
Every time I see Hunter, this is what he's like.
30 minutes, and we're gonna talk about the same topic. Yeah, I know. Exciting, right? Okay.
Didn't she? Because you know what? Fuck it. I don't care if it's social faux pas. I'm showing DMs. Hold on. We already talked about them in the DM too. Didn't she literally say she wanted to be nice? And she was the one, was she yelling more? Like, she was raising her voice at me. She was cutting me off. I'd be good faith, but I can't promise it won't be a debate. I disagree with the hear them out approach. I don't advocate a hear them out approach. It's a stop dehumanizing them. I'm not anti-vax. Okay. Please don't unfairly label me as conservative or anti-vax. Fair. I don't think I did that. No clickbait YouTube titles. All right. Didn't do that. No disrespect, insult hurling. Just a calm and respectful to... That didn't get that calm. I'm okay with shit getting spicy, okay? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you get notified when I drop a new video.